a little bit of black if I wanted to. I'm not going to. You can if you want. This mixture of them that's kind of a grayish brown, that can also work as my dark. If I need to use a dark color, I'll just use brown on the objects too. So I left a little bit of it right there as my brown. If I need it, I can always make more. The only problem going into the painting is that there's a lot of green here, so I'm going to make the green here on the ends because we don't want the green to take over. So the green leaves I'll probably make a brownish green so they're not too exciting, whereas the melon itself will make more of a bright green. I think we're going to start with the back of the painting and move forward. So the first thing I'm thinking of doing is painting on the melon. What I'm going to do, it has these pretty cool looking stripes on it, and it also has a lot of texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, see how I kind of drew the stripes in? I'm going to put some water where it's lighter on my painting, on the paper. This is my idea. There's different ways you can paint it in. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of my green there. Here I'm adding some water to the colors. A little bit of my green in those areas and let it spread out a little bit. So, because they're going to end up being lighter. And I also thought it might be cool to kind of dab at them with my, okay, I made a little fleck right there, so I'll add a couple more to the painting as if it was on purpose. So we're going to try and show some texture in this painting if we can. So here I've got my lot of water and those parts of my paint, my melon to get it started. I think I want it slightly darker a little bit here and there. And then I'm going to take my paper towel and dab at it. This is for the lighter areas on the melon. So I'm going to kind of dab at it, and now I'm getting kind of an interesting texture like you see in the photograph. So just kind of took my paper towel while the paper is still wet and did some of that. Also, you can use your three colors. This is going to be primarily, of course, it's going to be green, but I can add just a touch of my other colors in there if I want just a little bit of color variety, or I want to suggest some shading or something like that. And then I'm going to kind of get rid of that a little bit and try and hide it. And then I can add a little bit of my violet too. So I just want to show that it's kind of darker here at the bottom. I'm going to dab with that. Okay, now I'm going to go in with a stronger green. This time the paper is going to be dry. There's just a little bit of violet in it, so it's not bright green. So I'm going to purposely trying to dab it in with a little bit of texture from the start. That one's nice and dark. I have a little bit of violet in with my color, but still obviously very much a green dominated thing. I'm going to dab at this again, just get a little bit of texture there. And then maybe finish it with some specific details, just a little bit so it looks slightly more finished. So I'm gonna and come up in here. And some of this might kind of fan out and not quite do what I want it to do. That's okay, because you know, it has a fuzzy texture. And I'm probably going to just leave this for now, leave this alone unless I don't like something later. If I look at the photograph, I like the purple look where it's looking darker here, so I'm going to add, kind of fade some purple in from this location out. And then darker line across the bottom. So I'm going to leave the melon alone for now. With the grapes, what I think I'll do is I'm going to get them, I'm going to use a smaller brush now. I'm going to Another thing too I could do, you know what, I'm not just for fun. I'm going to just add a little splatters of green. I'm just flicking the bottom of my brush. And you could put things on your painting where you're avoiding it, but I just put this in the green and split. There's a few extra ones, but that's okay. Okay, so for the grapes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in, they're going to be violet mostly, and I'm going to put little kind of water drops here and there. So it's ready for me when I come in just a minute with my color. It's kind of ready to jump into action. And there's a lot of leaves here, so I'm not putting water on the leaves just right now. And then get this started with some pretty direct violet. It's a pretty dark color. So, and then also to infer shading, like I have the light coming from this direction. See how it's darker on this side? So I'm going to do the same thing with my grapes when I put this in. I'm going to kind of paint with the brush stroke on the one side, so it's going to infer that I have shading in there. It's already wet, so that's why it's fanning out just a little bit. Just adding a little color right now, and I'll go back in and play with each one just a little bit. So I got them wet first, and then I'm adding some violet, and then the ones, you know, depending on how much water they have and where the water is, it's fading out and adding some interesting looks. I'm going to add just a touch of orange, because I think if you look at the photograph, it has kind of a little kind of transparent look to it. So I'm adding the same place. I'm adding a little, that's the thing, the grapes are kind of like eyes in a drawing. You have to draw them the same way or paint them the same way to get the 3D look. So I added just a touch of orange because I want the a little bit of a transparent look. And now I'm going to go back into them. Maybe I'll mix some green in with my violet and get like some shadows and get into these darker areas in between the grapes. Like I have in negatives. And if something kind of wanders off and does something I didn't want it to do, that's okay. So with watercolors, it's fun because you can kind of infer your details. You don't always have to say everything. You can just let things happen. So a little bit of a shadow. So I'm not using black, I'm using violet and green for this dark color here. And if I do have a negative space, I'm making sure it gets in those negative spaces. And then I think I can use the same color. I have a piece of stem right here for that stem. And okay, so that's it for the grapes for now. I have a lot of leaves in there. For the carrots, what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably get them wet and then add orange on the sides and let them fade in, and then kind of pull some details across the top. So we'll get each, I'm still using my round brush, my medium-sized rounded brush, and getting the different areas wet, but I'm not letting the water touch. Anytime you want during this video, just like the other times we've done, that you need to stop the video to catch up with me, I'm probably painting a little bit on the fast side, that of course is fine. So I have my orange here, and I'm going to go just kind of along the edge of my carrot and let it kind of fade in where it wants to fade in. So I have some water there, and I'm going to kind of see if, and I can probably just let some of these lines come across. So see how I'm painting an outline in the orange, and sometimes it touches the wet areas and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm getting a little bit of water. I'm just going to do it on this side, and I'm making sure I have this kind of shaded side here. So I got it wet first, then I kind of did an outline and let some of it fade in. Now I want to put in a little bit of a shadow. Again, I'm going to go with this mixture that I've kind of created. In the case, I think I'll go with the violet-ish mixture, violet and green. I'm going to put some kind of darker, little hints of darker details here and there, only on one side so it can suggest that it's a shading as well. So, you know, and I'll just repeat that for the different carrots. Just kind of a fun, it's not like there's a, this is how you paint carrots. You know, I'm painting carrots this way today. Your carrots might look slightly different. So doing it again, I got some water there, and I'm going to paint along the edge of the carrot. I'm painting the second carrot in. And then where it touches, where I put the paint, it's going to do some fading and getting a little more fading on this side. So I might purposely get it to do that here. So this is how I started the carrots, and then I'm going to pick up some of those, I think I did like on the one side, I added a little bit more water, and then I'm going to add some darks, a few dark little lines here and there. This one's got a little bit more water than the other ones, so I have to be careful. See, it's so wet right there, I'm going to be careful not to get any water right there necessarily, because I know it's going to cause me some problems. So I'm inferring some detail lines here, and I'll probably just leave that carrot alone. And then I think it could be a little bit more orangey, so I'm going to go into this area here again, my front carrot, boss carrot, whatever you want to call this particular carrot, and making my orange color a little bit more intense on this particular carrot. There it goes. A little bit more orange. A little bit more orange. If you haven't noticed it yet, watercolors have a tendency to dry a little bit lighter than you paint them, so you try and be bold with your painting. Notice I haven't used black at all in this painting, but I've got some dark areas which looks like I've used black, but I've created a kind of a use of brown that's working. Okay, here's my third carrot, and then it's behind all the other ones. I don't have to worry about my details too much, but I want to get some darks in there too. I'm just using the same kind of darks I have here and there on my palette. Okay, now for some of the greens. We don't want this green to dominate too much, so I'm going to use some browns to kind of get these started, and a little bit of green. I think here on the carrots I'm going to kind of get them wet. I'm just doing some brush strokes right now. There's only water, there's not really, well, it's dirty water. And then I'm going to paint a little bit of green, get it started, and then I'm going to finish off those brush strokes with a darker color. Let's get a little bit more green in this dark color here. And then I'll, because the idea is we don't want the green to get too strong. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing down a little bit with my brush, and then pulling up as I paint these lines in. And then I'm not going to paint back and forth. I want them to stay kind of attractive looking. So down and up. And it's already wet here having a wash. And then I'm not going to make them greener than that. Like I said, I don't want the green to overtake it. Okay, and now for my other, my greens here in the grapes. If you've ever been outside, I know you have, you'll notice that each plant kind of has its own kind of green. So I want to kind of try and paint these a little bit different, so I don't get the same exact colors going. So this one, maybe I'll make a browner color for my browns. I'm going to mix some orange and green, but no violet, so it's a little browner. Looks like a different type of green than we used here. Going around the edges of my leaves. And then I'm going to come in with some green in just a second. So I'm starting with this brown color. This brown color I made with orange and green, but I left out the violet on this one. And then a little bit of just green. and it's wet, and I just used brush lines. Let's see how dark this is. A little bit dark, so I'm just painting in the color of the green here. Probably would have been nice if I had a highlight right there. Well, I just threw a brush at myself. So I'm going to just push down and give myself a highlight. Pull my chair back. And then go back into that. So sometimes you can dab at things. So this leaf right here, adding some details there, and then doing the same thing. Because I'm painting the same kind of leaves, it's a little tricky because I'm not happy with it yet, but I want to have the same sequencing in all the leaves so it makes sense as a whole. Okay, I want those to stand out a little bit better, so I think I'll go back to one of these darker colors and add just a little bit of outlining just on the one side so that they look a little bit more like a leaf. There it goes. I know it's probably tempting, for instance, especially to use the color yellow to this painting, but I really want you to try and stick with our limited colors so you can kind of get to know the power. There's a couple things sticking out right there. The power of sticking with your color triad. Okay, I have one part of the painting left. I'm going to do these larger leaves up here. Because it's so big, I think this was a piece of my painting I didn't put in. I wasn't intending to use it. Let's see how it looks. I may have to darken it later. I wasn't intending to leave another white spot there. I thought it was a leaf. We'll see. You know, part of art is problem solving. You like something, you don't like something, and so you figure out what you're going to do about it. Something that actually might look kind of cool. I'm going to take my big brush, since I do have a little bit of splattering there. I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of violet splattering where my violet is. And I'm going to add just a tiny bit of orange splattering where my... You don't have to do this, you're just doing it because I think it'll look good. Just for fun. Okay. So here we are on our upper leaf. I think I'm going to, this time maybe I'll start off with painting that dark outline first. I'm deliberately trying to paint them slightly different so that I get a different look to the different leaves. So coming in with a very loose type of accent line for the different leaves. And then I'm going to add some more green. And not a totally bright green, but since I'm up in the part of the painting that does have green, why not? And this one I'm okay with because it's a little further away, so it doesn't have to be as detailed as things that are closer to me. So now at this point in the painting, I can just decide, do I want to add more details? Do I not want to add more details? I think it might be nice to get slightly darker, maybe a shadow behind these things. So, excuse me if I totally ruin a painting that was almost good. I'm going to go in with a little bit of a shadow here in the background. So here, behind the melon, I'm going to darken the background a little bit. Behind the grapes, I'm going to add a shadow here. Just needed a little more contrast, and definitely here under the carrots, a little bit more of a shadow. And I like this one right there though. And I don't like this brush stroke right here, so I'm going to fade it out. So you can go back and kind of erase with water. Okay, I like that a little bit better. I just darkened up next to them and helped them pop out. So I'm going to stop here. Just stop the painting when it still looks like you're not quite done. That's the nature of watercolors. You can do too much. So we're going to stop just before and let it kind of your brush stroke show and everything. I hope you really enjoyed this painting unit. It was really fun. Our final will be painted, whether it's back in the classroom or e-learning or not. So don't get rid of anything. And I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm really eager to see what you guys do this time. Bye. Have a nice vacation.